Welcome, everybody. Just going to do a quick technical check. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know you can hear us. Let us know that you are getting this live. And if so, we'll keep going forward. So just give us a thumbs up. Let us know where you're coming from, too. We're really excited to share with you tonight. So we'll get going in a minute or two. We just want to make sure that we are all doing good on the live.
Yeah, it appears we're live.
All right, great. I'm just going to do a double check. And let me see if I can see you.
Technology, huh?
Right? Well, this has been really interesting times. And so I guess I'll just start regardless of how we're doing. This has been probably the most intense year of any of our lives in some ways. And, at the same time for me, having some time away from people and away from all the things I was expected to do was actually also a really relaxing time. So there's a bit of a stretch, this kind of yin and yang. We want to talk about that a bit tonight around partly the duality, partly the split of how different people are on different sides of consciousness right now and awareness and what we all believe, but also how this all bridges back into herbal medicine, into plant medicine, into people's medicine, and how moving forward, we can grow our capacity to understand our planet better and therefore understand ourselves better through working with plants as medicine. So that's kind of where we want to go with tonight. And we just want to honor your time and say, we are here from unceded territories, really just starting to expand into learning from the plants directly themselves, but also from our peers and from each other and as a community. So I want to invite you to just, wherever you are, to just acknowledge and give thanks to the lands you're on and to yourself for taking the time to spend an hour or so with us in uncovering how herbalism is a form of activism almost in 2020 and where all that lies and what that all is. So I have Dr. Terry Willard here with me. He is the Grand Poobah author of many books and really creator of the Wild Rose College. He's one of the sort of more well-established herbal elders who's been carrying the torch for plant medicine for, 40 years now. You've been in clinic and in setting up the college and doing herb walks and talking about this stuff and what I'm sure a lot has changed. So Terry, thank you for being here and thanks for
great.
running in.
I love to be here. The first thing I want to say is no matter what the times are, it's easy to say that the planet itself grows herbalists. Yes, if you're part of our herbal family, welcome, come on down, let's have a good time. If you're not, well, we're interested in having other people because the planet itself has always grown herbalists since, time of millennia or the mists of time, as it were. The planet needs this because I consider herbalists is kind of an interface between ordinary society and nature. We're kind of that interface in that realm. And that's one of the biggest reasons to get involved with herbology, to kind of straddle those two worlds. So if you really like to know about nature, get involved with it, and even your own health, you'll find that it's a balance. It's not what fights what virus and stuff like that. It's what helps you as an individual be in balance. What helps your family to be in balance? What helps your community be in balance? And this whole thing is about a homeostasis situation or a coherence of us and our community and our world.
That's it. That's what really got me so excited about learning more about plants and about this is the holistic spectrum of this understanding the body is more than just a physical plane. I think this is coming more and more accurate the further our science starts to look at this as well. We're starting to see, we can see at an electromagnetic level. We understand quantum physics has a place in the world. We understand all these inherent qualities that maybe were considered pseudoscience a long time ago, or as scientific revolution came, as almost integrating in now. And we're seeing that plant medicine has a really important place to play in the world of our growing awareness as we grow forward, not just in what the phytochemistry of the plants are, but how we connect with our planet in general, right? And our community as a whole.
And that's really what we're doing here today. We're here to help introduce you that and see how that affects 2020 and how that is, how we can see 2020. We're
I
this far
know.
into the year and we haven't figured out how to look 2020. We're looking at the news, we're looking at our own fears, we're looking at all the various emotions and all the confusion, all the arguments that are coming up over the silliest little things when it comes to this. In election year, if you're in the United States, in a fire year, if you're on the West Coast, in a smoke year, we're defining it all as that. But we forget that the concept of 2020 is to see clearly.
Right.
And that's what we want to do. And that's partly what herbology is. Herbology is just an interface, again, for us to have something to have gratitude to. So the Dalai Lama says the best way to strengthen your immune system is have happiness and fill it full of gratitude. So I like to say I have gratitude for you. I have gratitude for the plants. I have gratitude for Gaia, the planet, and all nature. And being able to take those to help that go into coherence is really what we're talking about with a herbal medicine. Yes, when we go into courses, we get into the physiology, we get into the biochemistry. I'm lucky enough to have a PhD in that stuff to get into the science aspect of it. But that's not what really gets me going here. What really gets me going is that energetics, the emotions, the electromagnetic quantum stuff that Yarrow is talking about. That gets me going because, well, there's a wee bit of magic in all of that stuff to be able to see how we interface in a wider world, a more holistic world. And that's what herbal medicine is all about. That's not saying that pharmaceuticals and stuff don't have a great place, because they certainly do. Modern medicine has a great place. It certainly does. Herbology just goes to another level of realizing that health has more to do than the biochemical story. It's literally the story of our species. It's a story of nature. It's a story of our ancestors.
Yeah, that just all rings so true, and is something that I love that you've been championing for the last couple of decades, really just helping integrate how herbal medicine and plant medicine and a lot of these holistic concepts come down to that integration with the mind and the heart, with the self and the outside world, and that level of coherence and connection that it all brings together. And I just want to just echo the whole concept of 2020 and what we call in. And there's a lot of different understandings of these natural laws of reciprocity, of what you attract, of what you kind of call it a polarizing. And all of that has been made really clear in 2020. We have gotten a lot of 2020 vision, in my opinion, of like what's really going on for humanity. And those of us who are able to dig into something more potent and meaningful in our lives are finding a very good, strong navigational pull towards a life of purpose through this whole process. And I think for me anyway, that's what herbalism has done for me. 10 years ago, I made a pact to myself that I really wanted to take the next 10 years and focus on deepening my connection to the natural world, to how things show up, in witnessing the plants, in working with them as medicine. And over that process, that deepening, as I thought was to really connect with plants, was actually an awakening in myself. And I think that's a big growth piece that this vehicle of plant medicine can offer people. So if you're wondering, what can herbalism do for me this year? How can I, what is it that learning more about plant medicine is going to bring in fulfillment to your life? Obviously, most of us know that this is something, a path of feeling, a path of connection, a path of meaning in learning these things. But just as an example of both Terry and I, by deepening our relationship with plant medicine, we've also been able to uncover and deepen various levels of ourselves through that and learn more about how we show up. And that's to me been the most beneficial thing I've found about always going back to the plants and always having this community to work with, to move through my shadow, to move through the things that are uncomfortable and challenging in these times, and to make sense of some of the dynamics at play in the outer world based on understandings of energetics that are happening in the inner world. So those are some aspects that I think herbalism has brought in my life to really open me up to a much broader perspective of how to show up on this planet.
And the high idea of this whole thing is to be able to give us a language, to be able to get us to focus forward. And that's what herbology is. We can talk about all these emotions and stuff like that, but it doesn't mean anything until we have a solid enough understanding what's going on. So that's when we develop the practical herbalist program for it to start with the basics. So yes, you get to learn a little bit about biochemistry and physiology and anatomy, and those are good foundations before you can go on to things like the flower essence and how it affects your emotions. We also have to create a vocabulary of the various herbs and how they show up. Why do certain herbs have certain energetics? Why are some nervines working on the mind and the brain and relaxing? Why are some adaptogenic herbs? Why are some diaphoretic? Why do some work in our digestive tracts? By learning their personalities and fitting it up with our personality or our client's personality, we can start to be able to create formulas for them. And that's the idea of starting to understand this kind of puzzle of who we are as humans and how the herbs can do that. And that's why I can easily say I have great gratitude for the plants to be able to be those teachers, for nature to be those teachers, and a lot of the great mentors I've had along the way.
I like to think of it as appreciation. And I just want to dive into what you kind of mentioned about matching up the characteristics and the personalities of the herbs with the personalities of the person. That's been a huge thing for me too. And I feel that something that plants have offered always to all people for all time. And obviously in taking herbology seriously and learning deeper some of that language, you give yourself a paintbrush to paint these characteristics and understand these energetics with, but is that the plants do all have a personality, and they're one of the easiest ways to understand how to communicate on a multi-species level. I think that's what humanity needs. And like you had said before, herbalism or herbalists and that herbal path is kind of the gateway between these worlds, between the world of the human and the world of the plant. I think anybody can do this. And this is exciting. It's been exciting for me anyway, to realize that each one of these plants has such a unique personality. And that's where that language and decoding nature kind of is part of the herbal medicine path. So you talked about adaptogens and nervines and some of these other concepts. I mean, I just love what I call those herb nerd words and all their multifunctional pieces that come with that.
And this personality shows up in the stories they say. For example, you might be wondering, is that really a reishi behind Yarrow? Yeah, it is. It's a big reishi we found in China when we were over there. Like, look at it. It was amazing when I first saw some of these, and Yarrow saw some of these, and before we know it, one of them arrived. But its byline, part of its personality, is a herbal saying to remember how it works to protect an academic from their own brain when they think too much. Well, that happens to me an awful lot. I think too much and I get insomnia. So I have to take reishi to calm down those squirrels or those little gerbils running around in my head sometimes, so I'll be able to sleep well enough. Fortunately, CBD does the same thing. And so can St. John's wort. And by understanding these various things, we realize they got a little bit of a kinship with each other. The medicinal mushrooms, the cannabis does, these various things. But if I use the THC cannabis, it hurries up my mind. But if I use the CBD type, that helps calm down. So we try to go through the courses to understand them at that level as much as the biochemistry. We cannot talk about how the polysaccharides work on electromagnetic frequency and how the terpenes in that work, all the biochemistry, but to understand its story, that's how you understand it. So the idea is for you to understand those stories, so those stories will help you understand yourself, your family, your community.
I love that. And like this reishi, for example, I mean, one of the things we wanted to talk to you tonight about is like, what is it? What are some of these herbs that are best for the times? And what are some of these different types of plant medicines that can really support us during these turbulent times? And I would say, to kind of dovetail on this whole concept and conversation around the personality of plants, is that as you go into herbal medicine, those start to become really intuitive. Reishi, when you actually see it, it has this presence. There's this kind of awe to it. Every time I've seen it in the forest or even in the marketplace, it has a very high spiritual potency essence to it. Whereas I got a piece of chaga back here, and it's just more warrior-like. Like it just has a more different type of presence. This becomes really intuitive once you have that language and that landscape to start working with plants. But to really touch in on some of the herbs that we think are really most useful for the times, Terry had mentioned Nervines, and he had mentioned Adaptogens, and we've mentioned mushrooms and also cannabis. All of these in their different ratios are useful for different types of people. So as much as plant medicine is people's medicine, each person is unique. And that's the beauty of learning about herbal medicine as a whole spectrum, is we can start to understand the unique characteristics and nuances of the plants and of ourselves and of each other. You know, just like Terry, reishi is one of the best herbs for me. And actually I would almost, I guess I can't really use the word prescribe, but I would give it to anyone who is feeling a sense of overwhelm, or who gets anxiety, or who has trouble sleeping and insomnia, or who spends too much time in their head. Like Terry said, to protect the academic from their own brain. Another, saying for reishi is spiritual vegetable meat, they call this plant. It's got so many lines like that in China, where it's, meditation in a bottle is another one for this one. One of those powerful, powerful mushrooms. There are a number of other ones too. We don't want to go too deep into individual herbs here, but just as a collective, some of the medicinal mushrooms are definitely top of my list of things that I would do for overwhelm and for just supporting the immune system right now. So many of you already know that probably. If you know who I am, that's what I'm championing and sharing right now. But we also want to hear from you. Like, what is it that and we're going to check the comments here in a bit, and please tell us where you're coming from. Let us know if you're drinking tea. What are you drinking these days? What is it that you are doing to support your body during these times, especially right now, September, we're moving back into school. The circles are getting tighter. The weather is changing. If we know anything about patterns, and herbalism is a great example of understanding pattern recognition through all those energetic patterns, we know that the seasonal transitional cycles like fall bring in a lot more pathogens. They bring in a lot more immune stress. Going back to school is stressful. Changing of seasons is stressful. Putting on different types of clothes, getting into a different light frequency during the day is all stress on the body. So we know this is a time of pathogens. And even in energetics, we look at lung season coming on, right?
We're coming into flu season. There's no question about that. And, when a lot of people are looking at the COVID thing, they're really looking at how to wage war on it, how to beat it and fight it. The way I would like to look at it from a herbalist point of view is, what is the lesson here? What is the lesson we need to learn from it? That is our challenge. These are things in our environment. How do we work with the COVID? How do we work with the various flus? How do we work with the various things at this time of year to fortify ourselves? So the first thing, of course, is not having fear. Because as soon as you're in fear, your immune system goes down 80%. Can you believe that? As soon as you have gratitude, it goes up 40 times. So you put those two things together, that's 320 times or percent difference in the whole thing. So really what we want to do is we want to have gratitude. I know it sounds funny, but gratitude for the lessons that COVID has shown us. Maybe it's being able to have more time with your family. Maybe it's so you can cyber commute a little bit more. Maybe it's because you found out you don't have to have as many fancy clothes. Or maybe you realize you were spending too much money in restaurants. Who knows?
Well, it's getting to the heart of the matter, right? That's something that I think has been a beautiful piece. I have gratitude for the heart of the matter. COVID's brought up the heart of the matter on this planet.
It really has.
Really going on, what's really important, people, and do we need to quicken our pace and build our awareness? I feel that all of this is perfect timing for a hyper jump in human awareness that is really needed, because we've been broken for a long time. That's my opinion. Our society is not built in a way that necessarily reflects the individual's needs or the individual's desires, even at a fundamental level. So I think we're being given 2020 vision for that reason.
And part of that is building ourselves up, building up our immune systems. Of course, the medical community don't talk about building up your immune system because they don't have anything for it. the thing is that herbalists have a lot of stuff for building up your immune system.
Really
It
good.
might be some kind of brothy soup. If you eat meat like myself, it's a bone broth. If you're a vegetarian, it might be a mushroom broth or something like that.
Yeah.
We
A
might
mushroom
find different elixirs.
tomato broth is similar umami blend that can really support like a bone broth there.
Yeah, yeah. So there's many different types of broths. Ginger on the West Coast. We're living on Vancouver Island here, and so at this time of year, we want to start putting a little bit of ginger into our life. I think most of us are starting to put a little bit of elderflower in, because the elderflower, put in a soda drink, put in a hot drink, put in a tea or whatever, is going to strengthen our immune system.
Yeah, I'm seeing tons of comments too here in our little chat. Lots of people are doing some great stuff here between, the elderberry. Elderberry is a great syrup. Detoxing, doing some turmeric, pepper, some of these cleansing herbs, some of these, really spicy, invigorating herbs, right? This is the season we're moving into. Which
Absolutely.
is a huge piece for herbalism. Just to take it one step back, is like the cycle of change. We're in that right now. It's so wonderful to see the plants shifting cycles, and our health does all the time too. And it's just such an intuitive process as we move into this lung season now. Spices and warming up the blood and getting those broths on the stove and pulling in the harvest and processing it into that sustenance. This is a lost art in a lot of ways. And this is the ancient art of herbalism, is actually really making the most of each seasonal abundance and using its energetics to maximize our own strength in the environment.
And it might be time to fill up our ladders, as it were, our stashes for the winter. May it be firewood, may it be making up some soups and freezing them, maybe canning things and stuff like that. These are all part of preparing ourselves for the winter we're going through, for the fall we're going through. And the herbal area can be part of that whole thing to get us to work along with us. So 2020 is to see with vision.
Yeah.
And I think the vision of this is to see how we can be more imbalanced with our environment.
Well, and that's it. Melissa really writes something here that I think is awesome. She just shout out Melissa about how all this lung stuff, the energetics of lung is grief. And so this collective grief, as we go through this smoky, burny, fiery time, needing all this lung herb energy, is really a relevant thing. We are having a bit of a collective grief right now. And I love that piece of how herbalism gives expansive language that feels into things that might seem untangible or intangible from just I'll call it the masculine mind of science, of analytics. There's something that's just a beautiful, as Wild Rose for a long time, the byline for Wild Rose was the art and science of herbal medicine. And I just love that dovetail of how plant medicine offers us both sides. It really, we can look at this individual phytochemistry, but we can also see this energetic unfoldment and pattern and language. It's just,
and both of them are equally important. We do have to understand the biochemistry sometimes to be able to combine things together, to be able to prepare it in the right way. So we want to know the science. We want to understand the science. We want to have that to help us justify things and work with them, and to be able to interface with the rest of the world. But we also want the energetics of the whole thing. Now, COVID is, yes, a lung thing. Yes, the smoke is a lung thing. But we've been finding that it actually is more of a blood issue than we thought. Almost all the secondary things that are happening, especially people in my age group, the elderly, it's actually affecting how the immune system works, but it's really affecting the blood vessels, the heart, it's affecting the kidneys. So people have long-term situations with it that get hospitalized. It's going deeper into the body. But the number one thing that everyone's been seeing right now is a lack of vitamin D. So if you didn't get enough sunshine to build up right now, make sure you start taking some vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc. Take those things on a regular basis. The biochemistry of them is proven to be able to work on our immune system. So zinc, vitamin C, maybe some quercetin, all of these things will be able to work with that. This virus is way weaker than you can imagine. People thought it was so strong. Now we find out water, and especially soapy water, killed it almost completely because it's an oil coat. So we understand that nature. We try to degrease everything.
You know, the virus has a bigger effect on our whole world right now than just the virus itself. It has its own chi, just like everything else in nature. It has an energy to it, and so yeah, it's got that tenacity to a degree. And if you don't put it in, if you put it in the right ecosystem, it will thrive. But what's really the bigger virus, in my opinion, that is how our society has now wrapped around this virus as a point of focus. And it's like squeezing in the lenses right now. I see a lot of people, even in the comments here, commenting on Nervines and on what they're doing. But I feel that this is another piece of this virus. Like actually, I would say out of all the people I know personally, less than 3% of them have had COVID so far. But yet my life has been impacted by COVID at such a strong way. And it's not to say we shouldn't do that social distancing and do this whole piece, but it's that where I'm feeling this from my personal lens right now is on my nervous system, on my adrenals, on my fatigue in wearing and weighing down so much social tension in the world. I've been calling it social awkwarding. We are social awkwarding and we're in front of our screens not getting vitamin D. That's where I think the big medicine for the right now is. And same with, like, for example, the fires. The mullein is great. Your lung medicines of mullein and elecampane and colt's foot and all of these things can be amazing. But what I feel most from fire is a sense of grief from fire and a sense of anxiety around the fire. And it's what I'm seeing with COVID too. It's like a fire in a way. It's burning in our minds right now. So what are you guys doing for that? Like, what are we doing to support our nervous system right now? And what can we be doing better?
Well, of course, there's the medicinal mushrooms.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the adaptogenics that build up our immune system. They're really good. The nervines are good.
What kind of adaptogens would you mostly choose from yourself?
Well, again, what I've been using mostly is adaptogens, medicinal mushrooms. I'm a real big fan of reishi. That's why I wrote a book, Herbal's Spiritual Potency and Medical Wonder, many years ago, and how that works. But I also think things like astragalus is a great adaptogen for this kind of thing.
Energy.
I also find that echinacea is extremely good, especially at this stage. So to do a little bit of echinacea, do a little bit on a regular basis, vitamin C, the zinc, vitamin D on a regular basis. Do those bone broths or those broths with lots of ginger in it.
That's all immune-based stuff, right?
Yeah, they're immune and adaptogenic.
So what do you think of, like, as far as nervous system? I mean, I've been a big fan of milky oats and passion flower and skullcap. Those are like for my nerve support.
And milky oats really works actually on the nerves themselves.
Yeah,
it really works well. As the passion flower, well, it kind of works on the gentling
Christ consciousness, right? The brain and the
and skullcap too. In fact, a lot of people can't find the pharmaceutical evidence of how it works because it works more on an energetic level. But it's the one that was used the heaviest in the past by the old herbalists for this kind of thing, because it really worked on the skull.
Yeah.
It released some of the energy there. Now, typically, we wouldn't use one. We will put them together in a formula. And that's part of being a practical herbalist, to understand how to formulate. So first of all, you need to know what the colors are on your palette. And then you have to learn how to put them together in a way that you can create a formula, because everyone in your family might have slightly different formulas or slightly different
energetics, right?
They have different personalities. They're showing up in a different way. Some people might get fear from it. Some people might get grief from it. So we might throw some flower essences in here as part of the nervines too.
All right. So just to recap, what I'm talking about right now is the overwhelm that we are all, or not all of us, but a lot of us are feeling. If we have empathic qualities to us, we're feeling some tension, anxiety in the people around us. It's hard not to pick up their tension, and in ourselves and our families, going back to school, doing all of this stuff. That piece, these nervines in a formula, along with some flower essences and some of the medicinal mushrooms like reishi to kind of ground the body, are some of the best approaches we can do. So as far as Herbalism 2020 goes, to open up our eyes to what is really going on, yes, we have this immune layer and we have this adaptogen layer we need to work on, but also there's this really heightened nervous response. And I'm calling it social awkwarding, but I think that there's a lot that the herbs can support in us to feel more comfortable with each other. and to start to just release our stress and tension and anxiety around what's going on in our lives right now. And like,
I would agree. So, and the nice thing is some of these are multiple levels. For example, the medicinal mushrooms are kind of nervines, they're kind of immune building, they're adaptogenic for sure. So they cross many different pathways. But as an individual, we almost want to work at these, just like we don't want to have just one friend or no one person. It's kind of a community event that we're working with. The herbs work better if you join them together in kind of a community.
In a sense, that's why you'd want to deepen your knowledge of herbal medicine, not just to take the one-offs or to kind of play with the colors, but to really understand the nuances of each one and how that formula works, how the body works. And that's what we do at Wild Rose College, really, right? Is that we bring you into the herbal fold to understand at a deeper level within just even the practical herbalist program is an amazing starting block to really expand the color palette and the awareness around working with plant medicine. And I think that's just a big piece of that. I feel
it definitely is. But one of the other aspects of being part of a college like that is the community that works around it. And so that's why we put a lot of energy into the Wild Rose Village. And as soon as you join a whole program like a practical herbalist or a master herbalist, or you can do it individually, you become part of the Wild Rose Village. And it's an ongoing conversation where all the members are asking questions of each other and different people are answering, saying what they're doing. And hey, look what I'm growing in my yard. Or someone says, look at the new tea I just made and stuff like that. Then some of the instructors and some of the other people will come in and answer questions. Oh, that's really an echinacea angustifolia, not a purpurea, or whatever the case may be, because we have a little bit of knowledge in that area and we'll present it. So it's kind of an ongoing, well, it's the great discussion, as it were.
Yeah.
By having an ongoing discussion, you have mentors at different levels and colleagues at different levels that help you be part of a community. That's one of the biggest problems with doing things online. You are kind of separated. You're not part of a community. So we really like to envelop that community aspects. Point in fact is we have instructors and students from all kinds of other colleges joining the Wild Rose Village because it's a great forum to be able to talk to each other, to be able to answer questions. And of course, there's special seminars like this that are put on a regular basis. Once a week, someone comes along and does a seminar or a special interest thing. And so all you have to do is kind of vote them on the island or vote them off the island. I want to hear more about flower essence. I want to hear more about.
That's pretty neat, the way that the college has really expanded into such a neat online group. We have a lot of you online right now watching this video too. So big love to the Wild Rose Village. You guys are awesome. It's been such a fun treat seeing you grow your herbal community and knowledge together, all of us. So anyway, if you're interested in that, we do have a sale on right now for 25% off every course and every program at Wild Rose. It's another week. Maybe not even a week, maybe just.
Oh, it's not even a week yet. It's just a few more days.
Great. Well, if this is a call to action that suits you, that you're looking to invest in yourself and grow your knowledge of plant medicines, then, Terry and I really invite you to check out Wild Rose, wildrosecollege.com. But beyond that, we're going to keep doing this and keep growing this out regardless. And so we want to just expand and invite you into that family and that fold so you can learn more with this community around how to work with plant medicine. But either way, we'll be doing more of these live trainings. I know we're doing another one October on medicinal mushrooms, and we'll just keep sharing this.
That's a long one too. That's a more of a kind of an intense, I think October is Mushroom Madness month for us. So we're going to go through all kinds of things. Yarrow and I were both lucky and not so lucky. We were in China around the same time the Wuhan incident came out. Traveling around studying medicinal. What?
I was like, are we patient zero? No. But we were there in China, maybe an hour away from that area in September and October last year. This time.
Actually, our trains, at least my train, went straight through Wuhan. It was, one of those really super fast trains that they have there that go 320 kilometers an hour. Wow, that was kind of fun in itself, being able to travel around there. But again, that's where we got that mushroom, or Yarrow got that mushroom, and we learned an awful lot because we were at the 10th International Medicinal Mushroom Conference, and we were lucky enough to be able to work with some of the growers there to find out how they're growing, to go up to Seven Dragon Mountain. Like how cool,
yeah.
how cool was that to see literally a million reishi growing on plum logs? And some of those interviews and some of those people we worked with were just absolutely great to be able to have that adventure. And of course, we're going to be sharing quite a bit of that in October to be able to talk about that. At least Yarrow, he's championing that whole area as it is. But I do want to make sure that some of the questions are being answered. What else do I do? If you've got a virus and you think you're going to, I don't care if it's a flu virus, because we were going into that, and that might be just as significant as anything else. You want to be able to keep your immune system good. So these medicinal mushrooms, the broths are good, the ginger's good, but you might want to look at, if you have any chance to get tincture of alder catkin, that's really good for it. Sweet Annie, Artemisia annua. There's several countries in the world right now that have got an official drink for the COVID.
That is. I've got a few ideas too around that that I've been really playing with that I think are awesome for
well, you should tell us.
Well, okay, so the biggest thing when it comes to viruses, in my opinion, and what I've been understanding is things that are what we call biofilm disruptors, which basically protect the cell and tag the virus with basically a marker so our immune system can see this thing. That's a big piece. That's what elderberry actually does. And when people wonder why is elderberry good for viruses and flu virus, it's because it's a bit of a biofilm disruptor. We see that also with herbs like self-heal. We see that with a number of other kind of those types of herbs. There's a lot of these antiviral, even turkey tail has a bit of biofilm disruptor capacity to it. So that's something we want to look for. One of the big ones that my wife, who's actually in the process of building a seaweed course right now for Wild Rose, which is coming out in the spring, look for it. It's going to be awesome. I took some of the footage. I was with her looking at just gorgeous seaweeds. For those of you who are in our Wild Rose Village, look for that. It's coming soon. It's pretty amazing. Now, she was talking about the sulfated polysaccharides that are in the seaweeds. We produce these ourselves, but especially the albands, the greens, and the reds, there's these antiviral components there. So something to note around viruses, and this is just from what I understand now, is that bacteria have spent millions of years fighting viruses. They have been fighting viruses since the beginning of time. So they've had tons and tons of strategies around this. And part of the whole understanding that I've gotten from holism and from a holistic spectrum is that if we have viruses in our environment, we need to attune with the good quality bacteria, the microbiome, the ecosystem, to strengthen up our capacity to have each individual cell be more resilient and more aware and tag these viruses with these biofilm disruptors, with some of these herbs, with some of these bacteria even that are on the herbs. And when we look at things like cordyceps and we look at mushrooms like that, one of the things that came out of that conference that we were at was a lot of science now showing that there's this biofilm around the cordyceps mushroom that has a huge spectrum of all this other DNA that they had no idea about, that they think is now having a big benefit on how cordyceps actually works. And we're seeing that more.
Part of its story.
Yeah.
Part of its song.
It's like exactly. And so when we take this from an energetic lens, we see that a lot of these plants, these mushrooms, they have a song, like Terry says. They have a deeper story that can attune our internal environment to a wiser way of showing up, to recognizing on this planet how to be more resilient. And that's, to me, like, I've been blowing my mind for years now how some of these herbs work in their capacity to be antiviral or antibacterial or anti-mutagenic or antipathogenic. And that's in that understanding of how they support the immune system and the ecosystem as a whole.
Or another way of saying it, they're helping us rewrite our story with their story. So a lot of this comes down to diet. It comes down to food. And that's why nutrition courses are really important for this whole thing. So we want you to understand how the food, may it be the seaweeds, may it be the vegetables, may it be, the the macronutrients and the micronutrients. Each
Yeah.
one of those plays a role in helping you create your song, help you create your coherence, your balance, so you, your family, and your community will be healthy around you.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's really it, is building coherence at a fundamental level. Something that's really hard right now when we can't necessarily always hug each other or see each other or spend as much time in community to find coherence with our environment. Herbal medicine does offer that. It offers a solace that you can get out into the forest or you can get out into the natural lands and start to spend time building relationships again, or that we might not be able to do as well in these online communities, even though we do our best. That's the beauty of plant medicine, is that there's a piece of the fifth element, as I would consider it, spirit, the chi, the prana, whatever that is, that you come into contact with and you communicate with when you work with plants, when you work with, and it's in your food as well, it's in everything. And I think that we as beings are actually, this is a part of our actual need of food. We need fifth element, not just nutrients, but we need this fifth element connection to the spirit of other animals, the spirit of other plants. And that's what herbalism can offer us as a form of knowledge in our brains, but also in our bodies, to feel that chemistry and to feel that connection in that way.
And as he was saying, he was really talking about how the Ayurvedic prana, the life breath, comes in and keeps us away from the pyrana, or the little gobblies that are trying to eat us up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, how does this dovetail in with allopathic treatments and with what's going on right now in the world? I mean, we're being told multiple stories where we've got this mixed messaging, and this is a concept of duality unfolding into a bit of a battle of the sides. How do we work with this? Like this whole, some sides are, I don't want to call out masks and no masks, but like conspiracy and no conspiracy, agenda, no agenda.
Well, everyone has their own agenda. Let's be real.
Germ or terrain, like there's this duality going on right now. And it's actually putting a rift between us to find
That's
that.
a big problem in itself. That's not 2020. Creating rift. So there's no question there's a place here for allopathic medicine. There's a place here for the whole medical community, as it were, for being able to work with these things. You have to interface with what you have to. Yes, if you need to be on a respirator, you want allopathic medicine, say, take me to my herbalist, take me to my acupuncturist. At that point in time, you need battlefield emergency medicine. And there's no question about it. You should be open to that when it gets, or if it gets to that stage. Our goal is to make sure, it's kind of like the barefoot medicine that they had in China for so many years, trying to help us so we don't approach that stage that we need it, how we can keep ourselves pretty balanced. So if we do end up creating a biofilm, or we create a community of viruses or bacteria, we can bring our own microbiome to work. But really, it doesn't start just when you get sick. It helps the prevention of that. It helps you be emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually in coherence. That's what our goal is here. And yes, we can't always get that all the time, but we try to approach as many of those as possible.
I find with that kind of lens on, I feel anyway a lot more resilient in the environment. Things that used to bother me don't anymore. A lot of that has to do with knowing that I am doing a good job of taking care of my body, my ecosystem, my temple, so to speak, through
But
working.
part of that's hanging out at home and giggling on the grass with your child,
Right?
Working with your family, working with your kids. These are just as important for your immune system as any herb can ever do. Again, it's gratitude. It's gratitude to have a little bit of time at home. It's gratitude. So isolation is not always that bad. Yes, it's very hard for some of the businesses and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that we're really seeing in 2020. We have to learn to be flexible. We have to be able to shift with the times and to learn other skills and to work with the skills that are going to be beneficial for us.
Got it. So I'm just looking at some of the comments. Hey, thank you all for joining us online here. This is just the beginning of a conversation. Essentially, as you know as well as us, It's never as simple as it looks, right? Each one of us are individual. Each one of us is going to have our own unique story that dovetails into this. Our goal as facilitators for working with Wild Rose College of Natural Healing and for growing this herbal community is to help invite you to see that the world of plants, the world of plant medicine, has always been there for people through all these times. You know, you look at the Black Plague, and juniper berries were often put in the mouth of the doctors so they wouldn't get sick. Plants have always been there to support us. We've found these remedies throughout time. You look at Chinese medicine, 4,000 years of kind of written history around working with plants. They've been, at least 2,000 have written, but they've been using this medicine for a long time to support the body. And now, more than ever, we're out of balance, chronic diseased. COVID's one thing, but I think it's masking the deeper issue. And the deeper issue is that our bodies are out of balance as a society. Our minds are not quite in that place with the earth. And there's a big part of that as you go down the path to learning about plant medicine, I found, for myself anyway, regrow a deeper sense of appreciation for yourself, a deeper sense of appreciation for your community, for everything in life in that way. So I think of it as a vehicle for me anyway, to expand upon who I am and how I want to show up in that way. So
there's no question, if you want to become a herbalist, there's a lot of work. There's exams, there's videos. Some of the courses like Herb 101, which is one of our basic courses, it's kind of our flagship course. You go through almost 200 videos, being able to understand a little bit more about the plants. We got all kinds of bonus videos in there of myself or Yarrow or both of us adventuring out into the field and looking at them. But it's to understand a little bit about physiology, a little bit about herbology, just trying to create a language for you to understand. Then we go on to courses in biochemistry. And then we take anatomy courses onto themselves and physiology courses. And then we start working on our materia medica. We start doing it both Asian materia medicas and Western materia medicas. So you start to see how different cultures around the world saw it. You might want to work more with Ayurvedic. You might want to work more with Yanni. You might want to work with traditional Chinese medicine in that culture. You might want to work with Western medicine, the eclectics, the phytotherapeutic people. And then we build them up until you get to a final place where you start going into the master program, then you go into the clinical program. We actually start seeing patients. We connect you with various practitioners and patients across Canada. You can go into the clinic and be able to work with them and be able to understand how it works in the real world. If you want to go there, you can take one course. You can take just a weekend course, or you can go all the way through basically a 3-year program to be able to understand how that works for you. So it's not one size fits all. We do have diploma structures for you if you want to actually make it official, but some people just work away at it. I saw a person on the village because, oh my God, I realized there's only 2 courses away from getting the master herbalist, and I thought I was just playing. Well, I might as well finish the master herbalist now.
Right. Yeah, that's how I started, I took Herbology 101. And, it took a couple of years before I actually came back and did a whole bunch more. I moved away, worked in a health food store, and came back, wait a minute, I want to do more of this. So that's my invitation is if you are feeling the call to connect deeper with plants, to have some language, to have something to deepen that relationship with as a base plate, start with Herbology 101, start with something like that, take an online course, or join our village. That's a really cool way to work with the Wild Rose College, is to actually just join the village and start to see what all the other herbal students are up to. That's awesome. Anyway.
Make sure you get in on the sale.
Right.
You don't want to kick yourself in a week or so, realizing you missed the sale and you didn't get the 25% off.
Yeah, we only do that. This is like our fall sale, and we only do that once a year. So anyway, that's our invitation. I know that this has been a crazy year for a lot of us. I know that herbs are always here to support us. And regardless of if you decide to work with Wild Rose College or not, the plants are here. Hear their call. Connect with them. Remember that what ails you, there is support for that, regardless. The Chinese medicine model that has been working with COVID has been very successful. There's been a lot of people working that way. Some of these herbalist approaches have really worked successfully in that way. Yes, there is an allopathic model over top of that too. We want to play into both. I think both are really important. And I really invite people to start to see these as a necessary steps, just like we have male, female, black, white, day, night. We need both of these models to start to dovetail over top of each other. Plant medicine, though, is something that has such a long history that can really support us in understanding the energetics of chronic disease states, of not just acute and physiology and that kind of acute medicine, but what's really going on at a deeper level. So peel back your own onion, connecting with the plants, and the medicine is right at your fingertips in that sense. So,
are there any questions there that we should look at?
Yeah, I'll just look online. Please, if you have any questions for us, what is it you want to learn more about? Or what is it that you've been wanting to know? We're here for another few minutes, so just let us know and I'll check in some of the questions. Terry, I don't know if you have that ability.
Well, I tried to. I can't find the questions on here.
Okay.
So.
Oh, Ramona likes your license plate, Terry, the herbalist.
Oh, yeah. And it's a wild rose one, huh?
It's an Alberta wild rose, I know.
That was my license for almost 25 years in Alberta when I worked there. So, yes, I still have the rights to that license as a herbalist in Alberta.
Mm-hmm. Keep this conversation growing. Smoke, how to harvest? I'm not sure what that question is.
So I think a lot of people are wondering, does the smoke in the air affect the harvest of some of the herbs? And it really depends on what kind of herbs you're doing. The cannabis industry is really finding this being a problem down in California and in Oregon, etc., because the cannabis is actually affecting the quality of the harvest. But even more so, you got some polycarbonates that are that are slightly carcinogenic. How are they going to be able to clean these out of the herbs? Well, since it really depends on what you're doing, if you're extracting it or what you're doing, if it's going to fall off. If it's cannabis, if you burn it, you can burn it off. That's quite good, but you want to make sure it doesn't burn into your lungs. You want to get it off some other way, but it will affect the quality of the herbs to a degree. So it might be a time, if you're needing to harvest things right now, you want to get the root.
Yeah, root medicine time. It's that season anyway. We're doing a wild foraging series here, and tomorrow we're literally filming all the roots. And there's like, okay, we were worried about the smoke. We're like, okay, what are we gonna do here? But yeah, it's root medicine season. The energy is underground. That won't be affected in a lot of ways.
So you have to, again, what is the lesson that we're having here? And there's a guy named Darwin, and everyone claims that he did so much to do with evolution, good or bad, but he was actually, his son especially, really started studying biology. Darwin was actually a geologist in the first place. He didn't end up the Beagle because they didn't find anyone else. He wasn't really an environmentalist. He wasn't really a naturalist, but he learned an awful lot as he was going along his way. And he realized after a period of time, the brain of the plant is the root. No, everyone thought he was crazy. Nobody paid any attention to that for over 100 years. And guess what? We're now showing that the brain, the memory, is actually in the root. So if you take one of our botany courses, as you learn that, you'll understand a little bit
the plant.
We'll realize the whole world is upside down to what we thought, according to Darwin and several other people.
Yeah, and that communication between the microbiome and the soil, right? And all that's happening at that level. That is a big part of the intelligence of the plant, is that network around it as well, the biofilms.
And that's one of the, we're doing a conference here on the Canadian Herb, what's it called?
Canadian Herb Conference. This is just happening November 5th. Quick plug for that. So I've been part of the Vancouver Island Herb Conference for 4 years. We've been putting this conference on, and we can't do one in the Kootenays or in Vancouver Island this year because of COVID. So we put together like all of our favorite herbalists from across the country. There's over 30 of us sharing on plant medicine in a real deep dive at Canadian Herb Conference this November. So that's herbconference.com. That's going to be awesome.
And the lecture, one of the lectures I'm going to be doing there is how herbs communicate with us. Not only the biochemical work, how the electromagnetic fields work, how they work with the microbiome, how they work with the intermatrix, the living crystals in our body. I'm going to be looking at how they show up that way, which is a completely different way that we work with. How they work through the endocannabinol system. Yes, echinacea and pepper and turmeric work on the endocannabinol system. It's not just the cannabis. Yes, that cannabis can teaches a whole bunch of things about other herbs. We consider it, well, you know how a lot of people thought it was the gateway drug. We're saying it's the gateway herb. Understanding that herb will help you understand a whole bunch of things about other herbs.
And that's
Go figure.
That's one of the courses you have too, right? Is on cannabis for healthcare practitioners. That's on 25% off right now too.
So we have these various courses, but that's the idea, for you to be able to learn that kind of stuff, and to learn that, yes, you harvest them when you can. And if you didn't get the aerial parts early enough, you might want to go into the root parts. You might want to go into others, or have some things stored.
And each one of those has a season. Something that I just wanted to get a question in here. Nali Zaira. She's asking if it's all kind of book work, or if there's any hands-on, any work that way, or if that's her own initiative. And I will say that in the village, we have all kinds of workshops, little mini ones that can give you some hands-on things and some things to do as a group and collectively. Most of the course content at Wild Rose is looking at video and PDF and questionnaires, and part of a tribe going through that. But a lot of the hands-on work, you can work with any herbs in your area. They don't have to be the herbs in our area. Terry talks a lot about Western herbal medicine in his formulations, but there's also a lot of the Chinese herbs that are in there. A lot of these things that can be available in any part of the world. We talk about
and some people are making teas and sharing how they're making their teas. And oh my God, people are sharing all kinds of elderberry syrup recipes. And so as part of the Wild Rose Village, you actually get what other herbalists, may they be just students, may they be senior herbalists and stuff like that, and what they're making at this time of year. So our hand-on things are more or less watching that. Yes, Yarrow has some courses that are talking about preparations and how to do them. We have various
we've got a few videos too in the Wild Rose Village in the archives. We've done a couple of years now of archives, and if you dig into that, there's tons of great making syrups, making decoction ethanol extracts, tincture things. Becky at the Wild Rose Village is doing amazing work in herbal, just even adding medicine making. I think it's medicine making Mondays. It's great. So we're learning.
There's lots of hands-on, but it's really up to you. But you get to follow people who have done it for many years in that process, and you get to share your mistakes with other people, and that's how you learn. A lot of people realize, a master has made more mistakes than other people have even tried. So what it really takes down for you to become a master herbalist is you have to try these things, work with them for a while, and see how they work. And you're going to have fails. I mean, yesterday I made sauerkraut. Really important for this whole thing, building up the microbiome. You will find that Germany, and even more importantly, Korea, with their kimchi, had very little problem with this whole COVID thing comparatively. And Korea's right there, but they're saying because kimchi is not optional in kimchi is not optional in Korea. It's almost every meal, breakfast, lunch, and supper, and when you've ever spent any time there. And so we've made lots and lots of kimchi this year.
But just like the kimchi example, probably your first few batches of sauerkraut weren't very good. It took failing a few times of sauerkraut to make it good. And now
it really did. In fact, I would say I'd have 1 out of every 3 of my sauerkrauts fail for the first few years. I've been doing it for well over 20 years now, and I virtually never have one that fails unless there's a crack in the pot or something like that. Same with kimchi. I can knock those things off really well because my hands, my sense of smell, my look, can tell when it's right.
That's part of the hands-on piece, is that this becomes more of a lifestyle, right? I find people think they go to school for a career or for something like that. You could definitely get a good career as a herbalist, as an advisor, as someone working, especially in this field nowadays. A number of the people I graduated with have some great jobs working in the herbal field now, or are authors, or are product formulators, or creating neat stuff. But the majority of people I know that have taken herbal courses, it starts to dovetail into their whole life, and it starts to become just a way of living, myself included. I, yes, have a business, working with plant medicine. But the bigger piece of where it's helped me is just integrating into my whole life approach to working with just everything on this planet. And that's got me interested in more sauerkrauts and fermenting. For myself, mead making has been a huge piece that came out of herbal medicine originally. And it's not one of our courses. We do have a fermenting course that talks a bit about meads and gets you kind of in there, which is really fun. That course is pretty neat with Malcolm and Terry, and Malcolm's a guest speaker in our village sometimes. But starting to get to play with plant medicine requires, though, that you have a base level of understanding. And that's what I think going to school for plant medicine is that language. Like Terry's, just echoing what Terry said already, giving you a paintbrush and giving you a canvas and giving you some colors to paint your picture. What is your way of showing up? What's your original way of connecting in with this planet? Plant medicine is a vehicle that helps you grow your own ability to get to where you want to be in this world. That's what it's been for me.
Well, it's been great to spend the last hour with you. I hope you got a little bit of an idea where we're going with this. Check out the village if you have a chance. Check out some of the various things we offer. But more importantly, realize that having gratitude for something in your life, in my case, it's my family, and it's the plants around me and the herbs, can really help build you up and make you stronger as an individual. So I'm ready to say thank you very much, and it's been a good hour.
All right. Yeah, for me too. Know that this too will pass. All the good times, all the bad times, they too will pass. And we're in a cycle right now. The clarity point that I have seen, and that I think a lot of us are coming to become more aware of, is that we are in a time of change, that there is something fundamentally broken with the way our society is functioning right now. I believe the plants have a way, and the whole natural world has a way of showing up that, if we learn to dovetail and work with, is going to help us move forward into the right direction in our lives and in our future as humanity. Plant medicine is people's medicine. And I just want to thank you for joining us tonight. And if you want to work with Wild Rose College, wildrosecollege.com is the school's website. Check us out. There's about 4 or 5 more days, I think, left in the sale. 25% off everything.
Coordinators would love to talk to you if you have any questions. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comment section. Both Yarrow and I will look at them over the next.
Yeah, we'll come back and check out all the comments. My phone is not as easy to comment on the go, but I appreciate all of you jumping in and adding your words to this.
And some of our coordinators at the college would love to be able to talk to you about this over the next few days and help you through any kind of the process. So until
we got a good team there. Okay. See you soon.